how does him gearing back with the driver, how does that affect his game overall? Because, he loves to just let the shaft out, man.
He does, but this year his driving accuracy is way up because he's not using driver as much. He's using this mini driver he has in his bag, and it's really sorted out a lot of his accuracy problems.
I tell you what, the mini driver is made for places like this and Wiley, et cetera. Like, that's why I'm surprised that Tommy hasn't made better runs here. I mean, like, he was one of the first guys to go to the mini driver like 3 years ago. I remember being out on the range and seeing that club come out, and I'm like, what the heck is that thing? And then, like, and I was like, oh my goodness. And I was talking to the TaylorMade rep about, why he put it in the bag, and it's for certain events like this, and he just loves it. And he can hit it like 85% of the distance of his driver, but he can work it both ways, and it tends to be, much more reliable and consistent as far as accuracy. And I was like, man, oh man. And then more and more guys, JT had one in his bag. So like that's a thing. And near the top of the board, do you have any love for Tommy?
I mean, Tommy really hurt my feelings last week.
At Mayo Experience.
This is the final word on the RBC Heritage with Keith Stewart from ReadTheLine.com, who is in the scoring tent at Harbour Town right now. How you doing, Keith?
I'm just reporting my round. Shot 65 today, Pat. I feel about as good as the weather. Perfect.
I like what are the vibes at RBC Heritage? Because I do work off, listen, I'm going to be wrong a lot, but one of the vibes I like to work off of for the Heritage, especially now that all of the best players have to play in this tournament because it's a signature event, is I'm probably just going to fade most of the guys that had a pretty taxing weekend at Augusta.
I don't think that that's a bad idea whatsoever. This much I'll tell you. I love to get to the range early on a Tuesday morning, try to check out who's maybe most eager, maybe who needs the most work, maybe, all of the above. And first guy I saw on the range this morning, your defending champion, Justin Thomas. Second guy I saw on the range this morning was Tom Hoge, and third was Xander Schauffele. So two of the three that I saw, are two of the biggest names in golf. So I think these guys know that they're playing for $3.6 million.
They do, but those are, listen, I know that Xander ended up finishing inside the top 10. I wouldn't say that he was necessarily in the mix at the Masters.
No, I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying those are the first guys I saw. And in reaction to your question is that I think these guys have gotten to the point where they know where their weeks off are going to come. If they are traveling to a tournament, then they are pretty much locked in. Now, is Scotty or somebody like that maybe taking today off? That could be. But I think for the vast majority, these guys are here and they're getting in their work. I've seen Joey LaCava, which means Patrick's here. I think for the most part, you're definitely going to these guys know how important these big events are, and they have 3 of them in the next 4 weeks.
Well, what is it about Harbour Town that is a bit more democratic in the types of leaderboards that we see? What is it about the skill set that's required here that allows some of the shorter hitters, some of the guys at the bottom of the field to mix and match every few years?
I think if you could strike the ball well, then you can compete, and length is not the hurdle that it is at Augusta National. I mean, you look at that final leaderboard and how far those guys were hitting the golf ball and the ball speed that they were gaining off of the driver. It did seem a little bit skewed at the top. Here, you have a very similar skill set. We have very similar agronomy as far as the texture and the feel of it and the firmness is going to go this week. But the biggest difference is that if you're somebody like maybe, and again, he was there at the top of the leaderboard, but maybe like Russell Henley that doesn't hit it as far as some of the longer players, then I think that you definitely, if you're rolling along, you can roll here because this is a ball striker's paradise. And typical Pete Dye, if you can be aggressive, you can score. And I think that's priority number one in order to try to separate yourself from the field.
I'm surprised. Listen, we've seen Henley play this course year over year over year. I'm actually stunned he hasn't been better here in his career, whether it be against the signature event fields the past 2 years. He's come 8th and 12th, good results, but this seems like you'd just be checking off the courses where Henley would have a win. This would be one of them.
He's such an accuracy maven. I totally agree with you. Why he hasn't been in like serious contention here since it switched over to a $20 million purse 3 years ago, or even in the past, I just don't know. The guy is he's taken his career next level in the last like 3 years or so. Win at the API, all these top tens in majors. You could argue whether or not in some of those, like in a Xander way, whether or not he's contending, but the guy he's got the perfect skill set for you. I don't have a good answer to your question there. Could be a good week for him this week, though. I mean, you got to give it to that guy. He was trying to make putts yesterday, whereas it seemed like a lot of other players were playing not to lose. He was like, I give him credit. I think he was trying to win.
He had a chance to win. Half those putts he had for birdie dropped on the second 9. He would have been there with the pressure on Rory.
Yeah, I mean, we could say the same thing about Cam Young and a couple others. But overall, I was impressed when, everyone kind of the joke on Twitter or X or whatever was like, okay, when is Sam Burns going to go away? And then the coverage just made him go away. So it was like almost like the perfect punchline. But Henley never really went away until the very end. And, you got to give the guy credit for that.
So what else are you seeing on the grounds right now? I assume that you went to the range this morning and that you've walked around the grounds. What have you noticed?
So if you remember from last year, this was a firm contest. Lack of rain. I guess it's been lack of rain now for some time, but the water table is very low again. And this is just as firm without sub air and everything else with which to kind of control the ground and the turf conditions. I mean, the grass on everyone's kind of like townhomes and condos, like surrounding the golf course, it's all yellow. It's all burnt out. And we're coming off of winter down here. So it's really interesting. And I'm not saying because it's dormant. It is like dry and wispy. I mean, this place is an absolute brick. Now, that was last year. That's the conditions we have coming in this year. But as you know, and I'm sure you've brought us up in your other shows, this place just went through a massive renovation. And I know everyone, they jump to the official scorecard and they go, well, it didn't really change the length. And, I'm looking on Google Maps and it didn't really change like the overall kind of look of the golf course. But when I talked to the folks that did it from Davis Love's golf course design, they did almost 90% of the work under the ground. And in doing so, we know when we start to tear things up and we replant them, it makes them firm again, especially the greens. I think the greens are going to be like trampolines. I think they're going to be even harder than they were last week to hold. And if that's the case, and part of redoing the golf course was green expansion. So we all know that, well, maybe we all don't know, but greens go through a process what's called compaction. And what happens is that over time, when the push mowers are going over them, whatever, the slopes and the swales and everything, and the hills, they kind of get pushed more. So they become more severe over time. But also, the mower guys are generally lazy. So they take off 6 inches or 3 inches every time they do a loop and they go back and forth. So the greens start to shrink. All of the bunker splash comes and fills the outside of the greens. Well, when you go in and you scalp them all, you dig them out and you rebuild them, and then you extend back to the original size of the 1969 Pete Dye greens. Now, all of a sudden, because they're not as severe and they're larger, you get all these new hole locations and you combine the firmness. I think we're going to have a lot of entertainment this week with these guys hitting, for the most part, short and scoring irons in to brand new green complexes. They're going to act like trampolines with hole locations that they just haven't seen in probably 10 years.
Looking back at what has played here, so you had 2 years ago when Scheffler won after winning the Masters. There was a lot of weather that week. They had to finish on the Monday. It was a bit softer than most years. And then that threw off expectations, in my mind at least, about what happened last year. And when you take a look at the leaderboard a year ago, it was very reminiscent of the old Heritage leaderboards, where you had Justin Thomas ended up winning, of course, but you also had Novak, Harmon, Mac Hughes, Daniel Berger, Siwoo, Sungjae, JT Poston. These were the stalwarts at the Heritage for the past 10 years who started rearing their ugly faces again, who were nowhere to be seen 2 years before that. So it sounds like with what you're saying is that we are more likely to see a leaderboard that we saw last year than we saw 2 years ago.
100%. Pushing the agronomy aside, I think that you're spot on there for sure. I think you're going to see a nice mix.
Short game.
53 guys made the trip down from Augusta, so there's another 20 something of the general population that's here too. So I think that you're spot on. I think there's going to be a mix. I think there's going to be some regular guys contending, and I think there's going to be some Masters guys contending.
So when we think about the signature events that do open themselves out more to a longer shot winner, at least those in contention, obviously Bridgman won at Riviera. We've seen that happen from time to time, like when Kitayama won at Bay Hill against all of the top end guys. But normally you have one of the bigger guys ended up winning, depending on how you value Akshay and Berger going to the finals at Bay Hill. Maybe Bay Hill's another one of these too, but Heritage and Travelers really do seem to be the two that just allow for a completely different skill set to actually compete in these events.
100%. I mean, you're putting the words in my mouth. You start talking comp courses. You're looking at places like Sedgefield, and of course, you're looking at Pete Dye's TPC River Highlands. A little bit different topography there, so you get a lot of terrain changes. But overall, the ball striking test is very, very similar. The more aggressive you want to go, you can do it both. And if you're successful in that way, a la a player that's good on Pete Dye designs like, let's say, a Siwoo or Sahith's been good. You know, you look at what those guys are good at. They're very good at attacking those types of golf courses. And when they make little mistakes, they have great short games with which to make up, keep the round rolling, and then go look for another scoring opportunity.
Is there anyone from the bottom that you're looking at here, or do you think that those guys have no chance? Be it I've bet, we'll get to the bets later. I've bet on Smotherman because you talked about aggressive iron players that I once watched Graham Dillette hit, I think, 54 consecutive greens in regulation at this course, brought himself into a nice 54-hole lead, and then he stopped hitting greens in regulation, and since he couldn't chip, he lost that tournament. I believe Wesley Bryan ended up winning that year. This has also been a course where a lot of big comebacks have been staged, although we've seen a lot less of that recently with the better players populating this field.
The better players in the no cut really lend itself to just ramp up to the back nine on Sunday. I mean, you can have some fun with some of the other markets on a daily basis, but the best players are going to save their energy on Thursday and Friday, position themselves on Saturday, and then they're going to attack the heck out of this place come Sunday. And you really saw that kind of flip a little bit in the last 3 years since they started inviting, all the biggest names had to come.
But we still see the Spieths, the Fitzpatrick. Like Cantlay continues to play well here year over year. It's not like this one was devoid of the very top end talent. In the 3 times that we have seen it with the top end talent, yes, a very good player has won. But looking at those leaderboards in 2 of the years, I would say that they were more typical of a random PGA Tour event rather than a signature event that we're used to.
I think a lot of that has to do with where it sits on the schedule. I think a number of the guys, there's so much fatigue mentally and physically that those guys go through up at Augusta National, and they feel like they're forced being here. I think about the year that Rahm won, and then they dragged him down here, and he was like, didn't even want to be. You could just tell he didn't even want to be here. I think some of that sentiment holds true, and with four rounds guaranteed, they can go a couple. Now, some of the guys just know they play well here. Cantlay, Spieth, Fitz for sure. But I think a lot of the other guys, you see the chance of that extra, the regular tour guys. You think about it too, like the way the signature events are set up now, those Aon guys and the top 5 guys, though they're playing the best. So you think about guys like Shooter or Lipsky or whatever, like those guys have been playing good and they're coming in on a roll. Yeah, they didn't get a chance to go play Augusta last week, but that may have been a blessing. That's still not, just because we didn't see them last week doesn't mean that they're not playing good. They didn't qualify for the Masters. So, don't be surprised if you see a couple of those guys up near the top of the leaderboard. Those guys are in great form, and those would certainly be some of the names I'd be featuring.
Have you seen Morikawa around the grounds? Is he still lumbering around?
I have not seen him, but and we'll get into. Well, we might as well get into this now. But I think he's a sneaky sharp play this week. I mean, I've been wrong before, but I think he's a sneaky sharp play this week because he's very good around this place. He's playing some of the best golf he's played all season, and he lost strokes off the tee last week, but a lot of that has to do with length. It wasn't like he was spraying in the woods like, Sam Burns or Rory or something like that. And there's just not going to be a lot of attention on him. His number is going to be somewhat valuable because people see him walking around. He looks like a piece of plywood. So he doesn't have to really swing hard here. And maybe, do you ever notice when you play golf in cold weather and you have too many layers on and you can't really swing loosely, and then you keep the ball and play more? Just an amateur observation. I've seen it a million times where, somebody looks like the kid in A Christmas Story and they go out and they play golf and it's too cold, but then they play better, than their floor. And it has a lot to do with the fact that I don't think Collin's going to take any risks. He's just going to play the golf course the way that he knows he can play it. And he's proven, in past runs here that he's pretty good here. I think that there's an opportunity there for him to kind of sneak up on this field. It's Scotty's tournament to lose, but I think Collin could be a sharp play and somebody I'm really interested in.
What do you think his withdrawal risk is this week? Because he was going to gut it out for the Masters as long as he was playing well. Obviously, there's a lot of money on the line this week, but he doesn't need that money. He needed to play in the Masters. He wants to win the Masters. Winning a tartan jacket may not be at the very top of that list.
I think that his injury is at the point where if he went through Augusta and he was fine, that if he starts here, I feel pretty good that he's going to finish here. If he doesn't, or he doesn't start at all, I don't think it's going to be one of those things where he's going to go 2 rounds and then just bail on us. I think of all 3 options, I think that would be my third percentage-wise. So I think he plays. I think the second option is he doesn't play at all. And if he does start, unless something abnormal happens, then maybe he drops out. But I think that's the third of the 3 options for us. So I do think it's a decent play.
Is anyone at the hospitality tent trying to bribe someone to withdraw so Brooks can get into the field?
It's is he the first alternate?
He is. He is now the first alternate. Yes, because Rose pulled out, so the first alternate got in. So he is now the first alternate.
Oh yeah. Well, you never know. I could go talk to Collin if you're that big a Brooks fan. Idoni would love Brooks to be in the field, be his first signature event. But no one that I know of quite yet. So
I would be relying on guys that are good around the green here. That's something that always tends to be sticky at the Heritage because the greens are so small. Guys are inevitably going to miss these greens, and you got to get it up and down. And the other big part is the par 5s that some of them with the perfect drive can be reachable in 2, but the going for the green under regulation percentage at Harbour Town is something like 8%. Guys aren't going to be piling up a bunch of eagles here.
I don't know where you want to qualify it as, but whether it's scrambling or around the green acumen or short game play, but all the above. Everyone always thinks of short game play. It's like to save par. And there's 2 categories of that. Yes, there's getting up and down to save your par, but there's also like the par 5s here, like you mentioned, or number 9, where everyone just blasts it down next to the green. And then you have to use your short game to try to make birdie. So you're trying to get up and down, not to save par, but to make your birdie. So that's 2 reasons why, 2 very, very important reasons why short game is so important here. And a lot of times people get thrown off and they forget what strokes gained is really measuring. It's what you gain against the field. And, you don't see a ton of gains in strokes around the green like you might when people are saying, oh, you need around the green, You're like, well, geez, the average winners over the last couple of years since they went to $20 million, those guys are gaining an average of less than 2 strokes on the field with their short game. Well, it's because it's hard here. And everyone's using it a lot, so it's just tough to gain on the field. But that doesn't mean that the guys that are contending and playing very, very well aren't really gaining on the field. But it's just one of those things that you got to be careful. Sometimes when it's hard to drive the ball, you don't see a ton of gains in strokes gained off the tee, but that doesn't mean that can't be an edge for you. And I think short game, I'm 100% behind you. I think short game is a huge edge this week, especially after the dissertation I gave everybody earlier about what the turf conditions are for the greens. The greens are absolute bricks.
What do the green complexes look like here? It's funny that we mentioned Morikawa, because one of the biggest bets I think I've ever had was Morikawa to win this tournament in 2021. And he played in that final group with Stewart Cink, and I was feeling pretty good about myself. And then Stewart Cink was like, you know what? I'm going to putt from off the green everywhere and just destroy the field. So that is an option at the Heritage.
Yeah, very similar to last week, and with the turf conditions. So now, now we're in Bermuda grassland here, and it's coastal Bermuda, so it's super grainy, and you're going to get a lot of into the grain lies around the greens. You got to putt them. Either that, or you do those little kind of chopping down chips. You certainly can't use the bounce into the grain on Bermuda, especially alongside the water here. That's just a recipe for chunking chips and doing all sorts of things. And so you're going to see people using the flat stick, especially with how dry and firm it is. But overall, the grain around these greens and everything, again, like why does it always seem like the chips are into the green? Think about it. When the water like works its way off of the green and it drains, right? It's pushing the grass down and away from the green surface. So the grass starts to grow in that direction. And that gnarly Bermuda grass is always almost like away from the hole, away from the putting surface, away from the green. So every time you chip it, it just compounds how much more difficult it is. So, the grass is pointing into you, you're into the grain. If you don't chop at it, that's the only way you can hit it. You see a lot of guys chop at it and, try to pop the ball up and chip it that way, or they putt it. But you can't use the bounce like you would see a normal shot where, a guy looks like he's picking it off the ground. That just won't work. The leading edge will grab. And then that's when you get all the highlight reels out there on Twitter.
So you do or do not want the steep angle of attack here?
You want super steep here. You are not looking for bounce. You are looking for to dig it in the ground or putt it when you are into the grain. If you're with the grain, you can hit it any way you want. The grass isn't fighting you, but you get a lot of into the grain lies around these greens. And another reason why around the green is so difficult. Another reason why it's a good separating factor. Another reason why, it just kind of compounds Scotty's advantage or Russell Handley's advantage or some of these really good short game players that are at the top.
Good news for my guy, Michael Kim. Very, very steep with the angle of attack on his chipping.
Yeah, I mean, we also, last week was very difficult to have a steep angle of attack from anywhere.
Yes.
It cost guys a lot of shots from the fairway and certainly around the green because of how firm it was. I mean, that place was really running.
Tell us. You were there. You were there. Did you stay through Sunday or did you kind of mess off for a little bit?
No, I was there through Sunday because, I was trying to be there on Monday and play. Imagine playing that place under those conditions. But I didn't get my name pulled in the media lottery. So I did something else yesterday, but then I made my way down here to Hilton Head and got here first thing I got here last night, but I got over to the golf course first thing this morning. But I couldn't even imagine had my number been pulled for Monday, what it would have been like playing that place under those conditions. I mean, I would have drove it like I was like 30 years old again, but I mean, the greens and they would have watered the heck out of it. Don't get me wrong, but there's only so much you can do. The place was, you could feel it. It was like literally like walking on plywood.
What do you think that you would have scored playing in that media round?
Ooh, member tees aren't that long there.
Would you have been inside? Would you have been in the 70s? Would you have been above 90? What do you think?
I think if the conditions were fair and soft, I could definitely break 80. I don't think that would have been that difficult. And I'm not saying that because I'm good. I'm just saying but
you are good. You're a PGA professional. You are good at golf.
Yeah, but the greens are really big and I'm usually a pretty good iron player and I can putt okay. So, but the way I doubt I would have been able to compress the ball good enough all day long to hold all those greens under those conditions yesterday. So that probably would have been more like a mid 80s round and just have a lot to do with the fact that I just couldn't hold any greens and then you're above the hole. And then now you're just putting it from the fringe to 10 feet past the hole and you're not making those because that putt's probably 2 cups outside and, just something that you just don't really have a lot of experience doing, we joke. I'm sure you covered a lot of this, but one of the biggest trends always is how many times has the guy played Augusta in order to have that experience? You just don't have the experience playing a golf course like that is that demanding. And you can kind of learn it over a couple of holes, but most of our games just aren't up to that task.
Were you surprised that they made the course easier almost every single day?
No, because I think they were a little surprised how firm it got on Thursday, and they were very lucky on Friday. They were unlucky on Friday and Saturday with no wind. They were lucky on Sunday with wind. You really need wind around that place to make it hard. Otherwise, those guys, you're talking about the best, 20 players in the world, 10 of which who probably have a chance to win that thing, who are working as hard as they can on their game to be precise. If there's no wind and it's not firm like that, then, the way it played Thursday afternoon, if they had kept it like that, the place would have been like a Shinnecock in 18. And then they're smart enough to know they don't want to make the golf course the story. They want to make the winner the story. But it was heading that way very quickly. And so I wasn't surprised that they softened it up a little bit on Friday, a little bit on Saturday, and then they kind of let it just do whatever on Sunday.
They put the pins on Saturday in more scoreable positions than I was accustomed to. I guess I wasn't surprised because I guess the entire idea would be, hey, Rory's ahead by 6. Someone needs to catch him. What we need here is for someone to go on a crazy birdie run and Rory to play, and that's exactly what happened.
Yeah, Saturday was a TV pin sheet for sure. They wanted guys to go on runs and they got their wish. Scotty went on a run, Cam goes on a run. All those guys kind of position themselves. So all those folks out there, all those conspiracy folks with the AM, PM versus PM, AM waves and everything that said, Rory got the easiest wave. They like Rory as a winner, blah, blah, blah. That may be true, but Augusta on moving day has notoriously been set up much harder than it was. And I looked up the scoring average. That was the lowest scoring average on a Saturday ever. And ever's a long time.
That trade in 90 years, that does track.
Yeah.
So what did you notice? What did you notice being out there like that maybe we didn't get to see on TV, or just little things that you picked up on?
Well, what would I throw into next year? That's a great question. What would I throw into next year's handicapping? Rory bucked 2 of the 3 biggest trends that everyone talked about all year, or all of the content leading in. He defended and he took 3 weeks off. Which, as we learned later, that he didn't really take 3 weeks off. He spent 3 weeks at Augusta National, which must be pretty nice that you could do that versus I'm sure somebody like Jacob Bridgman's like, hey man, I'd like to come up there for 3 weeks and hang out till you throw me out, to learn the place. What did I notice? If it's firm and fast, you can't put enough emphasis on short game. Rory did it all with short game and putting, which is kind of interesting because, we talk so much about it being a second shot golf course and everything, and his ball striking wasn't nearly as good as most everyone else in the top 10, but his short game was super elite. He obviously understood from all his practice rounds up there where to miss it. He was just super. I mean, that's that up and down on 16. No one's talking about that with the putter. That was an unbelievable up and down with what was the turn of the line and everything. And you make one bogey there, and people go on runs, but the runs can be bad and good, Pat. Guys go on birdie runs, boom, 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 birdie, 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 and then all of a sudden they go on bogey runs. He could have really started a bogey run there, but boy, oh boy, that was an excellent up and down, and he had been doing that all week when he was punching out from the trees. So I think that if it's firm and fast again, and guys can't hold greens, I don't think you can weigh short game enough, and I think that is something that definitely I'll take to next year and years going forward.
Looking at the bets for RBC Heritage, I have 4 in, and I don't really know what to do this week. There's a lot of guys that I like, and there's some numbers that I like. Most of the numbers are kind of crappy, and the board is starting to settle, which I do appreciate. So here are the 4 bets I got in. I bet on Spieth at 50, and that's with the 3 places. Min Woo at 110 with 3 places. Harman 150 with the 3 places. Then I took Smotherman at 200 with 8 places. Now, obviously, some of those numbers have been beat down. If you don't play them in the 3-way placement markets, they're going to be worse. I'm seeing Spieth at 27 right now. If you are in Canada, outside of Ontario, I have the PME exclusive boost at coolbet.com. You can get Spieth back at 40-1. He hasn't played this well since the last time that he really challenged to win a tournament, which was here 2 years ago, 3 years ago. Jesus.
Yeah, I mean, he believes it too, Pat. You heard him after his 4 rounds. At Flash there, and he said, I'm hitting it better than I did when I won here in 15. I just can't putt. The stats prove that. This is certainly not as difficult a place to putt, so that would concern me that, it might make it easier overall for him to kind of raise his baseline. But the problem is that guys that are putting good are going to make a lot of putts here. I mean,
when he won this tournament, he lost 2.5 strokes putting.
Well, he's on pace to do that again. He certainly is.
1 putt percentage super low here. Short game probably means more than putting. And if he's going to be driving it and hitting his irons like he is right now, he could be a force here.
Oh, and the iron game and the short game are certainly going to be a huge advantage for him here. Local knowledge, et cetera. And, the reason Spieth takes us on a roller coaster every week, every round, every 9 is that he plays aggressively. So it suits Pete Dye's design. He's going to go after the golf course and try to score. He's not going to like hold back and be cautious. He's going to keep trying to shoot 65 every day. And that's why we love him. So this suits him well. When you think about guys that have been trending lately, Spieth is one, very good history here. Fitz is another, very good history here. Cantlay is another, very good history here. Which of those three you feel most strongly that Spieth is your guy?
For the number, yeah. I like him objectively over Cantlay anyway. I mean, I prefer Fitz, but he's half the odds.
I mean, Cantlay's history here is so good.
Yeah, no wins. I recall him blowing it to Spieth in a playoff here.
That's true. He definitely
and the good run from Cantlay. Well, let's pump the brakes a little bit. He had one good tournament.
Well, he was good at Valspar. He was great over the weekend last week at Augusta.
I guess 2 in a row. He's starting to pile it up. Let's get a turkey of good performances before I start wanting to bet you at 28-1 or whatever the hell he is.
Yeah,
22-1. 22-1. Come on now.
Hang on. 25 I'm seeing down here.
That's still terrible. Like, give me Gimpy Morikawa over that.
Well, I know. You're going from what, like a 40-1 Minwoo at Augusta to, what did you say, like 1,001? What was that number?
I grabbed him immediately at 110-1. That was with the 3 placements, but he's still as high as like 75-1. So he's more than double what his number was last week.
Yeah, it'll be a great test for Siwoo because he definitely checks the scoring on and around the green box. I mean, he checks it 3 times over. Does he continue to maintain, some of the semblance of order he's had with his approach game? And how does him gearing back with the driver, how does that affect his game overall? Because, he loves to just let the shaft out, man.
He does, but this year his driving accuracy is way up because he's not using driver as much. He's using this mini driver he has in his bag, and it's really sorted out a lot of his accuracy problems.
I tell you what, the mini driver is made for places like this and Wiley, et cetera. Like, that's why I'm surprised that Tommy hasn't made better runs here. I mean, like, he was one of the first guys to go to the mini driver like 3 years ago. I remember being out on the range and seeing that club come out, and I'm like, what the heck is that thing? And then, and I was like, oh my goodness. And I was talking to the TaylorMade rep about, why he put it in the bag, and it's for certain events like this, and he just loves it. And he can hit it like 85% of the distance of his driver, but he can work it both ways, and it tends to be, much more reliable and consistent as far as accuracy. And I was like, man, oh man. And then more and more guys, JT had one in his bag. So like that's a thing. And near the top of the board, do you have any love for Tommy?
I mean, Tommy really hurt my feelings last week. I'm not going to lie to you.
Well, I can give you a list of people who hurt my feelings.
At the top of the board, I think Xander actually just rates out the best. He just couldn't putt last week. And as I've tried to describe, is like sometimes good putters go on bad putting runs, but I'm never afraid to back them because I know that they're good with their flat stick, that they'll snap out of it. Like Spieth, who knows? Spieth has been the best putter on earth at one point and like the worst putter on earth at one point. Hopefully this can be one of the weeks where he actually finds it a little bit on the greens. Fleetwood's another example. Like Fleetwood's a good putter. He just hasn't putted well recently. Xander just losing a bunch of strokes chipping and putting just means he had no sense for the speed of those greens. And maybe that persists into this week, but I would bet against that. The issue with Xander is that everyone kind of liked Xander and beat his number down.
Oh my goodness. That Rahm number and the Xander number last week. What did I pick up last week? Everyone knows how to say the word Xander. That's what I picked up in the media center. Unbelievable how many people were, Xander this, Xander that, Xander. And you just saw that number just like fall off a cliff.
Did you ever get to go back and forth? All those people that were like yelling at you for saying that like Bryson was a terrible play. Did you hear from any of those guys again?
I haven't. But Liv they're gone now. Well, they'll be back at Aronimink, and they'll be all over him again.
But I don't like at Aronimink. I don't mind that as much versus Augusta.
Exactly. We're going up northeast in May. It's going to be soft. The grass, there won't be nearly as much rough, and that's a big hitter's golf course. Aronimink. I've played there several times. Chances are it's going to be a little bit on the softer side. The weather's been decent up at home, but like it's still like springtime. We're going to get some rain, I'm sure, and it's going to fall right into his lap. to be like perfect for him. Could also be perfect for Scotty, though. I mean, Scotty last week did look like he was getting that. He started hitting his irons again, pin high. And that's, like, to me, his superpower. It's like, it doesn't matter if it's a pitching wedge or a 4-iron. The guy just always hits the ball pin high. That's what Tiger did. That's what great iron players do. When you start to see those guys track the hole and they're always landing the ball right where they want to, everybody hits a little left or right, but it's the distance. It's the carry distance. If they start hitting that number, then you got to watch out. And Scotty was doing that last week, and he was doing it more than he has done it all year. So maybe it's a May thing over the last 2 years. He doesn't win till May or something like that. But Scotty's building towards something right now, and he's gaining confidence. And around this place where he's proven that, accuracy matters and he can win even under difficult conditions, I think Scotty's super live this week. The number's 4-ish, right? Somewhere around there. I wouldn't be opposed to if people were like, hey, you know what? I feel really good about this guy out there in the 50s. I'm going to take him without Scotty or something like that. Scotty is super live this week for sure. For the first time in probably 6 weeks.
I agree, and you're right about the distance control. He was a bit left to right. Like, the only great iron round he had was round 3. The other ones were, I don't want to say a bit spotty, but they were not near the top of the field. Like, he was doing a lot with his driving, and the irons were okay in the 4th round. But I mean, he was dead if he doesn't make those clutch par putts at, I think it was 6 and 7. He's just out of the tournament.
Technically, he shouldn't have really been hadn't. When he finished with that number, it was like, we're not getting to that number. Now, Rory always keeps it interesting, but I didn't feel like, I don't know. I just feel like Scotty's trending.
Listen, he looked better at the Masters than he has at basically any other point this year outside of, even when he won American Express, he didn't even really look that good. He just dominated everyone anyway.
Agreed.
But he always plays well at the Masters. Like, if Justin Rose was in this field, I'd be like, man, Justin Rose is trending again. He'd be like, no, he just played the Masters. He always plays it well. Couldn't we just say the same thing about Scotty?
It just shows that he's managing his misses. And when Scotty does that, then he starts to really gain on the field, and then they can't keep up. The Masters is all about those two guys you mentioned right there. Max Homa, perfect example. Max Homa knows how to manage his misses. When Max was in his prime of winning and everything, he was great at places like Sawgrass because he just didn't have the big miss. And then when he started to play poorly, it's because he had the big miss. But Max tends to show up on those types of golf courses because in those days, and now Rose currently in the Masters, and Scotty just doesn't. He knows where not to miss it. And when he starts to get in that mode, that's when you have to really start to pay attention, because that means that, over the course of 72 holes, that's when he starts killing you like 1,000 paper cuts. Like, it's just one little thing after another, and then they add up, and next thing you know, the guy's up by 2.5, 3 strokes on Sunday, and then you're like, geez, now I got to chase him, and he's got another gear that I don't.
How do you feel about some of the guys in the mid-range? Because I am looking for another bet, and it's funny that we've mentioned his name a few times now, that the more I've done shows the week, the more I've kind of talked myself into Justin Thomas at really long odds.
Man, I tell you, I watched Justin Thomas this morning on the range hit one of the things that Justin Thomas is really, really good at, and this is why he's such a good pitcher of the golf ball, is the delivery speed of his arms. If you ever see this live, it's tough to pick up on TV, but he's very good at controlling the speed of his arms, whether they're moving at 100% or 50%. And he was hitting some 50%, what looked like pitching wedges today, this morning on the range with he and Matt and his caddy Matt and Minister. Oh man, it was just so beautiful to watch, and the sound of the contact. And it was early morning; there weren't many people out there, so there wasn't a lot of ambient noise of chatter and stuff like that. That's all you heard. And he looked so dialed in. You got to remember, this is his 4th start since coming back from back surgery. So maybe not a win, but JT is a top 10 or something like that. Like, his skill set is coming into form. Yeah, for sure. JT looks really, really nice right now. And boy, it was a pleasure to watch him this morning.
The other guy was going to be Goddard. That I was very impressed with how he played in his debut at the Masters. I was especially impressed by how he was able to navigate the around the green play for someone who had never been at the course before. Much was made about, you mentioned Morikawa, and what he had to do in order to alleviate some of the issues he was having with flighting the ball, spinning the ball. We all remember Cam Young's chip on 8 where he just played it off the mound back towards the hole. The way that Goddard was able to use the contours of Augusta National leads me to believe he's going to be very good there at some point in his career.
Yes.
But now we get him at a shorter course, which technically takes away his greatest weapon, his driver, but his short game is elite. And we've seen him spike with putting and irons right around the same time. And I just think back to Wiley when he won there and what he was able to do off the tee. He could do that here too.
I was just going to say, like, the guy's got Wiley on his resume. So even though he was in the top 3 in, driving distance and ball speed and everything else, neck chains, whatever you want to call it, bravado, the guy was killing the ball at Augusta. And they just say, well, they can't win a place like Harbour Town. Well, he's already won at Wiley. So he's impressive. More and more, I am impressed by that young man because you caught on to it. And, there's a million things I guess I could add on to my experience of being there and looking live. But he was, for somebody who was playing there for their first time, and in the press room, he seemed like he was a little bit like eyes wide open, like, wow, this is like crazy how cool this place is. When it came time to play and compete, he was really good at putting the ball in the right spot, which is like the whole trick around that place. And he was doing it like he had done it 5 times before. He was really impressive. And there's no like every time we try to throw shade towards this guy, he just comes back and he top 10s. I have no reason to believe that he wouldn't do it again this week. I really don't. And if short game and scoring become a major theme in this 4-act play, then there's very little doubt in my mind that he'll be involved.
Here's what I find interesting, especially as it pertains to the odds. So if you just want to bet him regularly, he's like 50-1 this week, Chris Goddard. If you want to take him in that each way extra market, he's 75-1 with 3 places where I would probably be targeting him. But some names that are above him on the odds board, like Mav McNeely's like 35-1. Jake Knapp, who I think is probably the best comp of like where guys are at right now. You have a young guy who hits the ball a mile. Obviously, Knapp's playing great golf. He just top 10 at top 11 at the Masters to get his spot back for next year. But him being like 20 points lower than Goddard, who's won 4 times in the last year, seems insanity. It's pure insanity.
I do like Knapp here.
But
there's no way you could argue against. There's no human could argue against your point about Goddard. He's won 4 times. He's won at Wiley, so you can't say it's short course. Mitigates his distance off the tee. The guy just might be a winner, and you just can't argue against that right now. He just keeps showing up. Now I get it. Jake Knapp's showing up, but Jake Knapp's not winning. Goddard's won twice, and he went out and he won WM. Like he went out and won that thing, which was really impressive. I don't know. He's got a great Sunday scoring average, Goddard.
And Knapp has all these top 10s. I can't recall an instance of Jake Knapp competing to win a tournament this year. Can you? Maybe I'm missing it. Like, where was he like on the Sunday leaderboard back 9? Hey, there's Jake Knapp. He has a chance to win. Don't remember.
You're probably right. It was like Xander at the Masters, just kind of like float your way in on Sunday. And Jake Knapp's consistency has been kind of scary, though. Going to the Masters, number 1 scoring average, number 1 strokes gained total. He missed 1 cut at Players. Maybe that was the injury related, but everything else was a top 13 or something like that. And then he just pulled another top 11 at the Masters. He could very smoothly walk around this place. This is a good spot for him. He's got the short game. He's got the short game magic beans and the putter. And man, I've watched a lot of golf swings in my life, and this may come as a shocker to some people, but I'm not like old enough to have seen like Freddie in his prime, like live. Like I get to see everybody live nowadays. But man, Jake Knapp, the amount of speed that guy has for the effort that looks like he puts into it it's got to be one of the most efficient swings I've ever seen in my life. And that's saying a lot. That guy, it's almost, you want to talk about magic beans. I know we always talk about Spieth around the green, but what Jake Knapp does when he hits a golf shot and how heavy the ball flight is, and it just carries and carries and carries. I love watching him hit golf balls because it's just like impossible to figure out. And the fact that he plays so well and has been so consistent in 2026, I mean, all the power to him. But you can't argue against Goddard. You can't. You're right. The guy's been winning, and he's been equally as consistent as Knapp, but he wins. So at those numbers, yeah, Goddard makes more sense.
And there's like other guys in that range, like Akshay, you could sell me on. I think the last cut from my list, because I didn't love his odds, is going to be Harry Hall. That he actually hit his irons really well at Augusta. He missed the cut. He drove it and hit it well and couldn't chip or couldn't putt. He had the reverse Harry Hall type of stuff. But what he does plays well here if he can drive it well.
Well, Harry Hall, I mean, Augusta got in his head. What was he carrying? 2 drivers in the second round? Like he was switching his bag up mid-tournament and stuff. Like that's, yeah. No, yeah. I don't know.
So I have the 4 bets in. The lowest one I have is Spieth at 50-1. I don't think I'm going to break that. I could see myself like adding JT, Goddard, and like Nick Taylor at 200-1.
JT, Goddard, and Nick Taylor. You know, I mentioned his name earlier, and I think Sahith could have a good week.
You love Sahith.
I don't actually. I really don't. I'm not kidding. It's been a weird year. I keep betting guys that I really never bet in my life. But like, I don't know. And Sahith bit me big time at Valspar. But then he came right back at Houston and he was good again. And this is the type of golf course that really, I feel like really suits him. Positional golf courses where he can score with his short game and his putter. And he's good on Pete Dye golf courses. And his numbers up there around 90. We haven't seen him in a couple weeks. He's well rested. He's obviously playing well this year. You know, people look towards his finish from like last year, whatever. It's like, well, the guy was injured last year. He wasn't good, but he has a good history here. So I don't know. When we have these conversations, you start talking about value up near, near 100, somewhere around there. And like, is there an opportunity to get value on a guy? I think that there's still opportunity to get value in a field like this on Sahith, who could legit win in a field like this.
Do you think that he has more value than someone like Sung Jae, who's probably around a similar number, or even Shooter McGavin right now is playing great golf?
So I'm missing Shooter over in the media center, but when we're doing this show, but Shooter got a press conference this week.
That's awesome. I don't know the details of it, but if I had to guess, the reason that he's getting a press conference is I'm assuming that RBC signed him to be on the team.
Well, I don't know about that. I haven't seen a press release email about that, but I'll tell you this much.
Any good Canadian golfer is sponsored by RBC.
Well, then that's probably the case, or the fact that he's just Canadian and it's the Royal Bank of Canada or whatever the acronym stands for.
That is what it is, the Royal Bank of Canada.
There you go. And so he's in there right now. And we know how that usually goes. It worked out great for Ryan Gerard at Cognizant. Just throw him in the media center. And you're good, buddy.
Yeah, but you know what? No one is asking Shooter, hey, Shooter, you're the betting favorite to win this tournament. How do you feel? I feel like it's more like positive vibes when he's in there right now. Like, hey, you're having an awesome year. What's going on?
I don't know. I'll look at the transcript. If anything, and I'll ask the guys that were in there. If anything comes up, I'll be sure to tweet it out. I'll put it out there.
Starting something new is terrifying. I remember right before launching this show thinking, what if no one listens? What if it completely flops? And that's something that has persisted every time that I hit record and go to edit a show, even as I'm recording this right now. It never goes away. But taking that leap ended up being one of the best decisions I ever made. And honestly, having something like Shopify back then would have made it a whole lot easier. Shopify is the commerce platform behind millions of businesses. Whether you're just getting started or scaling up, you can build a clean, professional store with ready-to-use templates that actually match your brand. No coding headaches. And it's not just a storefront. Shopify's got built-in AI tools to help write product descriptions, improve your pages, even upgrade your images. Plus, you can run email and social campaigns right from the platform like you've got a full marketing team behind you. That would have been great like 15 years ago, not gonna lie to you. Best part, everything lives in one place. Inventory, payments, analytics, so you're not juggling 5 different tools to run your business. It's time to turn those what-ifs into with Shopify today. Sign up for your $1 per month trial at shopify.com/PatMayo. Go to shopify.com/PatMayo. That's shopify.com/PatMayo. Pat Mayo. Jared had a question for you.
Jared.
He asked what I knew, and I was like, I don't know any of this stuff, but maybe Keith would know. Jared, fire away.
I'm in the market for a new driver, Keith.
Okay.
At what point does the technology become too old? Like if I were to buy a 7-year-old driver, is that essentially out of commission right now?
Yes.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, okay. It depends what you're comparing it to. So if your driver's 15 years old and you buy a 7-year-old one, it would have been that much better wherever that is in time, in the time space continuum 7 years ago. But it continues to get better and better every year. I'm not saying, even as someone who used to own my own shop, that you need to buy a new driver every year. I appreciate those people. So does TaylorMade and everybody else. But what I am saying is that every 3 years or so, you're going to pick up, every mile per hour ball speed is 3 yards. And so if you consistently hit, the ball the same way, you just are automatically going to pick up yardage. And the shafts get better. The shaft is the engine in the golf club. My biggest recommendation, Jared, would be make sure you go get fit. Doesn't cost anything extra to get fit. Might take a week to get the club. All of the OEMs are very good at getting everyone custom fit stuff now. The most important thing to do is this: don't do it on a super windy day, and do it when it's warm enough. So that, make sure it's above 65 degrees and that you can swing and that you feel like you're loose and everything, and that the ball's actually going to carry and compress. And definitely go get custom fit. I used to love doing fitting days for when we'd have demo days at the club, and I'd always tell everyone, bring your old driver. We had a TrackMan there, and I could always beat it with the new technology, whether it's the shaft alone in a similar head or the shaft and the head. So I say, hey man, support golf, put the money in the economy up there in Canada, and go for it.
And get a mini driver, obviously.
You want to. I think Cust has a mini driver now. He may have sold his mini driver. It was not working out for Cust the way that he thought that. Well, he saw Phil have it in the bag one time. He's like, wow, Phil has it. I should have it. Then he started using it off the tee. He's like, it's my fairway finder. I've probably seen him hit 50 tee shots with this mini driver. I don't think one ever landed in bounds.
So, I mean, what is the point of getting the mini driver, right? It's you have to pull a club out of the bag, first of all, right? And maybe he doesn't play a lot of people they don't hold themselves to the 14 club rule. But
he does. He does. Trust me.
Okay, so if he's my first question would be, what club are you taking out?
Well, he doesn't play with as many wedges as everyone else. He may have taken out his 9-wood at one point.
9-wood.
He has the bag of an 80-year-old man.
I mean, it sounds like an 80-year-old woman. You got 9 woods in there? How many woods he got in there? I think it's like a flower pot that he's using.
Oh, I think he gave up on the 3, 4, 5, and 6 iron, I think.
Okay.
Just doesn't hit irons well. He's like, I don't hit irons well. Give me these ones.
The average golfer doesn't, and hybrids and fairway woods have been remarkable for that. So yeah, people start at a 6 or 7 iron. I recommend that. That's all good, but you should always have more wedges. And the problem is that most amateurs need more length and they need solid strikes. The mini driver only does one thing. So if you're a normal amateur player, you don't need a mini driver and a driver. The reason that those guys go to mini drivers is that because they don't need a 3-wood or even maybe at times a 5-wood, because they hit it so far with the driver that the next club they're hitting into a par 5 is a 4-iron or like a 7-wood or something like that. Like he needs a 3-wood and a 5-wood to reach a lot of holes, I'm sure. Or if he drives it poorly, then he needs a nice fairway wood in order to hit. And you definitely people need wedges. Wedges are this isn't some sponsored segment by anybody, but wedges are so important. People are always trying to a wedge. Think of a wedge as an iron, and you shouldn't have 7 different distances that you're trying to hit your wedges. You're just not that good. You should have 7 different wedges. Now, I know that that's hyperbole, but the point is that you can't go from pitching wedge to one wedge. There's so many yardages in there where people would play much better if they took a full swing. So if their 56 goes 70 yards, let's say, and their pitching wedge goes 110, what are we doing in between there? Well, Get a gap wedge and take a full swing with that. You will hit better shots more often by just taking a normal stock swing. And the same thing is around the green, 56 in a lot of places, especially up in the Northeast where we are, where the greens are small, the rough is high, it's dense. You need some form of lob wedge at 58 or 60 degrees. And you don't need 7 fairway woods, and you certainly don't need a mini driver unless you just want to use the mini driver and not use your regular driver. But then why would you take something with a smaller head when the other one's more forgiving? If you're not worried about hitting the fairway, take the shaft out of the mini driver cust and throw it in the driver head, and then you'd actually hit some fairways, but you'd have the forgiveness of the actual big head. Just a thought.
I like this. I'm actually in the market for a new driver too, because my wife threw out my G2.
I mean, that sounds like a country song. What'd you do wrong?
Well, it broke last year, and I was waiting for the season to end. I went back to my old Maverick that I had laying around. So I just had it in the garage, and she completely cleaned up the garage, and she found a broken club. And before I had a chance to get it fixed, it ended up in the garbage.
You and Sergio, huh? I see. I mean, that shirt today, you've been stealing stuff from his closet. So doesn't surprise me you guys are breaking drivers too.
Almost the same way too, except I didn't try to break mine. I just hit the top of a tee and it snapped in half. Sucked.
Yeah.
Sucked.
Yeah, it's not hard to break a driver, to be honest. You know, that neck is so thin, and it's the shearing power of someone swinging at pretty much any speed. Those things aren't hard to snap.
So should I go back to the Titleist, you think?
I tell you what, there's again, this is not any sort of sponsored statement or whatever. This is just an observation. Titleist, the last driver they came out with last summer had a lot of steam on tour. Guys loved it. Guys that weren't being paid by Titleist were picking it up, putting it in their bag. And then Titleist, normally their life cycle on a driver is like 18 months. They've already come out with a new one, which screams to me one of two things. That means either the one before wasn't any good, but we all know it was very good. So the other thing it screams to me is that they've got something even better. They don't want to wait, and their players know about it. So these guys have been putting the new driver, the newest Titleist driver, in the bag before Augusta, which seems crazy to me that before you go to a place like that where you have to be so precise, that guys were switching things up. From what I'm hearing, people love the new TaylorMade, but the new Titleist driver, the guys are loving it, and guys are switching to it that don't normally use a Titleist.
First round leaders for the Heritage. Okay. I got 4 of them. I got Andrew Putnam at 75-1.
Okay.
Michael Kim and Austin Smotherman at 90-1, and then Tom Hoagie, 140-1.
I got news for you, right? Tom Hoagie has a new caddy. He's got Gino now, Gino Bonelli, the famous full swing caddy from Joel, right? Mm-hmm. Very good caddy. He was with Celinda. From what Gino told me, it was just Celinda wanted to take a break from golf for a while, so Gino wanted to pick up a bag. Tom called him. He's with Tom now. He started with him at Valero, so it's not his first week. They've had a little experience together, but this is a good Hoagie place, and Joel's had some success here. Gino knows how to get around this place. That could be a really, really sharp bet. When I heard that news this morning when I talked to Gino, I was like super psyched for him. But that could be a good combination here. Very good golf course for Tom because, that guy's radar with his irons.
It's usually just a single round that you're looking for. I bet him to win here 2 years ago, and I believe that he was in the group with Scotty to end it. I think he came T18.
Yeah, isn't that the one where on the last hole he made like a 9?
Yeah. Sure is.
Yeah.
Played himself right out of that each way. That was good times.
Yeah, that's tough. But I do think that Tom is going to play. I mean, the caddy's always going to tell you, for the most part, hey, Keith, my player's playing good. But, there's positive vibes in that camp right now, which could go a long way. I wasn't thinking about him for first round leader, but hey, the way he hits his irons and can putt, and he's proven. I mean, he's got the course record at TPC Sawgrass, which, if we do check, is a Pete Dye golf course. So, good times.
One and done.
Oh boy.
We hit this one last week. This worked out very well. We went with Rory. Rory obviously ends up winning. I vault from 22nd to 3rd in the $1,000 one and done because of it. Unfortunately, my best team in the race for the Mayo Cup had already used Rory at Riviera, so I did not have a chance to use him. However, the team I had in last place, which was in 5,300th and 8th place had Rory got a win. So I go from, when you look at the screen and you see all like the little pin drops of where your guys are, I like 2 up near like right around the money, 1 just outside, and then 1 at the very back left. Well, that one's in 700th place now. So it does really just take 1 big win, and all, especially at low ownership too. Like Rory was, I think Rory was 3% owned or something like that. 4% owned in the Mayo Cup last week. He was 4% owned in the big one. Like that's how you make up the ground. You take the good player no one else is using. That's why we ended up taking him and talking through that discussion.
Yep.
And I'm trying to figure out who that guy is going to be this week. And it might be Cam Young.
Most popular is going to be what? Cantlay, Hanley, Spieth?
Cantlay, yes. Spieth, yes. Scotty, maybe even yes.
I think I'd let Scotty percolate for a minute.
Memorial. You got it. Like if you haven't used Scott, like he's available in 52% of leagues right now. In the 1,000, he's 55% in the race for the Mayo Cup. Like if you don't use him here, the next logical spot is Memorial or one of them, or even Doral, honestly.
Yeah, Doral would be a good spot for him.
Doral also seems like a great Xander course.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. Especially with the Gill redo, it's way more subtle. The way that Xander's short game, I know we talked about this earlier, that Xander's short game will come around or whatever, but you'd really want one of those elite players at the top. And it'll be Furman. I mean, like, is there a better firm golf course player than Rory McIlroy over the last like 5 years?
It's him or Scotty.
Well, yeah. Okay. Yeah. Fair enough. But like, man, when it gets firm and fast, Rory finds himself to the top of it, like instantly to the top of the leaderboard. And Miami should be that way. And with the redo from Gill, it's going to be much, it lost a lot of that Dick Wilson character. It's going to be a very subtle, a lot like Colonial, but like on steroids. So that it obviously falls right into Scotty's hands. But I wouldn't be surprised, because it's long too, that Rory takes a crack at that one for sure.
So yeah, Cantlay, Fitz, Spieth, I think are probably going to be the biggest looks at the top if people have them available. I wouldn't hate Xander here either. I just don't have him available right now. So I was looking like I have Scotty, I have Fitzpatrick, I have Cam Young, I have Cantlay, I have Ludwig. Just don't give me Cantlay in a chalk week. Like I will bet the don't pass line on Cantlay here.
Yeah, I was thinking Henley at first. But I thought he'd be super popular, so I'm down with the alternate pick of Cam Young. Most people are going to think that he's going to be fatigued out or whatever, but he finished third here a couple years ago, and
won at Wyndham.
Sedgefield's certainly a comp. Yeah, and I have both of those guys. I don't have Xander anymore. I don't have Fitz. I'm not going to do Spieth. I'm just not there. So for me, it'll either be Henley or Young. To be determined. Yeah.
I do think Justin Thomas is a really interesting play.
Yeah, if he wasn't defending, I'd like him even more. But I guess guys win back-to-back years. Kind of happens.
We did recently see that. I can't recall where, but I did see it. Yeah,
I can't wait to all the content next year where they're comparing Rory's run for 3 to Steve Stricker at the John Deere in 2009, 10, and 11. That's gonna be some great Masters betting content right there.
Justin Thomas, yeah, I'm gonna use him in that one. Just trying to figure out what I want to do here. Maybe I'll use Harman in this other one. I do have one that's still a bit lagging, so I'm gonna go off the board a little bit. Try to pick up some cash somewhere. At least Harman's won a major before. I feel good about that.
You really like Harman here, huh?
It's funny that you don't like Theegala. I really don't like Harman, but as I've continued to say on all of the shows I've done this week, how impressed I was with how he played at Augusta to get himself through that cut line.
He did. I mean, he gritted that out, and then he probably had the best. I mean, there was a number of great press conferences over the week. You asked me earlier about my observations. That was more from a competitive side. From an entertainment side, there was a number of press conferences that were like all-timers. Certainly Sergio on Sunday with the water bottle, not commenting on anything. And then Ewan Murray was like, hey, since you won here, you haven't played very well. He's like, what do you attribute that to? He's like, bad shots. And it was like, okay. And then he's like, but yeah, could you elaborate on that? He goes, well, bad shots lead to bad scores. And I'm like, oh man, I was like, this guy needs to be punched right in the face. It's unbelievable. And then Herrig and the guys went after him about like, what did Jeff Yang say to you on the fourth hole? And he's like, I'm not going to tell you. It's not even like I can't comment on that. Like there's such a non-confrontational way he could have went about that. And he could have said like, I've been asked not to talk about it, which everyone would be like, oh, well, if Augusta doesn't want us to talk about it, we shouldn't talk about it. Right. But like, he's like, I'm not going to tell you. That's great. But Harman still going back to Hoylake because the global writers, remember we were talking about this last week. What you said, one of the things that I love the most, I was saying one of the things I love the most is like the variety of questions we get in the interview room because the European writers are there and everything. And they have these crazy like thought processes on questions of what's important and all this stuff, which is so different usually than what we're looking into. Certainly what you and I are looking into, which is we're looking at, how guys are competing, how they're playing, how they feel about their game, so on and so forth. But the Harman commentary going back that he wished that there was a dinner he could have served at the Open. Oh man, it's just so good. That was great too. The Scotty turning into like just like a massive prick all of a sudden, all the time, and just roasting Sobel, which it wasn't even really a bad question. The guy's standing in the sun like 10 hours a day for Sirius, asking every single player that comes through. And, I didn't think it was a terrible. Do you think that was a terrible question Sobel asked just to get Scotty talking? It was the first question.
No. But I'm here for the Scotty Scheffler like being a dickhead turn. I love it. I think it's the best thing that could happen to golf.
Public enemy number one. It's classic.
Just make him just act more like Shooter McGavin, and we'll be good.
Oh, yeah. Could you imagine if he went
Scotty
full
like
Shooter? Yeah,
Scotty just give him the finger guns to each putt that goes in. That'll be amazing.
And then every time it doesn't go in or something, and he gives Ted the look, or the like sarcastic fist bumps and everything. Anyway. The Flash Center was undefeated last week. There was just a number of great comments down there, which is always good. Where are we now? We did one and done.
You got some questions for me?
Oh yeah, I think I do. Little RBC rapid fire. All right. When you think of the RBC Heritage, this tournament, what's the first person that comes to mind?
Satoshi Kodaira.
That's a good one. Any plans for Zurich week?
I believe that you and I will be taking the week off because I'm taking a vacation.
Yeah, well, I was assuming we were taking the week off, but I was curious what you're up to. I mean, you have a newborn and everything.
I'm going to spend some time at home. The weather is turning up here, so I'll probably try to get out once or twice. It'll be nice.
Nice. All right. Have you ever been down here to the Low Country, South Carolina, Georgia area?
I have not. I've been to Georgia. I've never been to South Carolina. Actually, no, it's not true. I've been to Myrtle Beach. I haven't been to like Charleston area.
I don't know. I guess Myrtle Beach counts as the Low Country. I'm not sure.
Cuss locked us out of our hotel room there. That was fun.
All right. What's your favorite type of sandwich? You could say warm or cold. But favorite type of sandwich?
Probably a smoked meat sandwich.
Smoked meat. All right. Aon top 5 guys. Which one's going to have the highest finish? You've got Lipsky, Wallace, Blanchette, Smith, and Kiefer. Who's going to have the highest finish this week?
Probably Jordan Smith. This is a good Euro course.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Fits. Yeah, I like that. Name one thing that your newborn, that's a popular item that we use every day that he'll never use when he grows up.
I could see him not being like, I can see phones going away.
Yeah.
That phones are just some like chip that's implanted in you and you just do that.
Yeah. I mean, that makes sense. I mean, the smartphone, the last thing people use on that thing is the phone.
Yeah.
Which is kind of crazy. I have this theory that I don't think like kids born nowadays will learn to drive.
Oh God. I mean, that's probably for the best because people are getting bad at driving. And if you can't drive a standard, you can't even really drive anyway.
True. Yeah. If you were playing Harbour Town, from your perception, what aspect of this golf course you think would give you the most trouble?
The driving. like missing in the right spots. Just I don't have that control over a driver, and I would have to hit driver, obviously. But as I mentioned to Blickel and on the research shows that year over year, it's far less about driving accuracy as it pertains to hitting fairways. It's about being on the right side so you can actually go attack a pin versus being on the fairway on the left side and being like boxed out by trees that are coming down. Then you have to hit a completely different shot.
Oh yeah, it's like Boxing Day down here. Like if you get like on the wrong half of the fairway, you can get shut out in certain places for sure. Especially, playing if you don't get your drive down there far enough to catch some of these corners and then be able to look at the whole green complex. It's very easy to get. You see these guys get shut out all the time on certain shots. Which Masters contender will play poorly this week?
Well, now that I have Cam Young in, it's probably going to be him. I'm going to say Russell Henley.
All right. On a scale of 1 to 10, rate your swimming ability.
6 out of 10.
6. All right.
It's like good. It's not great. I could be a lot. I could be a much better swimmer. I just don't swim all that often.
I mean, you're in Nova Scotia. I get that.
We live on the coast.
Yeah, but how long is your summer? Like 37 minutes?
Yeah, about that.
Yes.
You can put on a wetsuit. You can put on a wetsuit and go in the ocean.
I mean, I played enough golf in the rain, that I don't like to play golf with a rain suit anymore. And I'm certainly not going swimming with a wetsuit on. That's for sure. I could wait another day or month.
I'm with you. I'm with you.
All right. Last one. Who wins this week?
Jordan Spieth.
Woohoo. All right. Take us away.
That is the final word on the RBC Heritage. You can join Keith's newsletter at readtheline.com and follow everything he's got up there. Additionally, you can subscribe to the Read the Line YouTube channel as well for more content from Keith and everyone over at Read the Line. You can follow me at the PME. My newsletter for the cheat sheet will drop on Wednesday afternoon. Hit the Mayo Media Substack in the description, or just go to Substack and join it there. It'll get sent directly to you completely free. All right, smash a like on the way out, and we'll see you next time.
Experience!